Good morning and welcome to this week's Weekly Wednesday webinar. I'm Leilani Evans. I am Business Development Manager at TAG, providing assistance with your Sage software, all of the accounting systems, 100, 300, and Sage Intacct, as well as all of the supporting solutions, things like Sage Paperless and Sage Field Operations, and introducing Sage ToolOps, which will be the focus of today's presentation. We're going to be covering a little bit of an overview on what this solution can bring in terms of benefits and how it works. And we will then segue into a little bit of a demo that we'll share with you today as well. So let's get started. Okay, what is ToolOps? You have thousands of tools that are constantly moving back and forth between the warehouse and the job site. It can be overwhelming to think about where those resources are at any given moment and if they're efficiently allocated to reach maximum productivity. So this solution provides real-time visibility to the field, warehouse, and office teams, allowing you to have insight into how resource allocation, tracking, and management impact productivity, and your company's bottom line. What are the benefits of this solution? Accurate inventory allocation, higher utilization of these tools and equipment. And when we say what this exactly is for, it's for small tools, things that would be moving pretty quickly from job site, warehouse, in route to different job sites. This way you can track all of this. It's a resource management tool, but you can also track maintenance and service on these tools and equipment as well. This improves cost control and allows you for better reporting, easier management of service, inspections and calibrations, and increased safety and compliance. Tony Herring, who's a field operations manager at Woodruff Construction, says, the Sage ToolOps team knows what they're doing. They know the construction industry and they know what we need out of a tool management solution. We also were drawn to the cloud deployment model of Sage ToolOps since it provides our employees with access from anywhere and also makes implementation and ongoing maintenance simpler for us. So this is a cloud-based solution. It will integrate with 100 and 300 and allows you that, that real-time visibility. Okay, so there are various license types available within this solution. So I just want to mention that there's tracking, management, and then there's enterprise. Tracking is something that is integrated with only 100, tracking your tools, equipment, and consumables. It drives accountability, reduces loss, and decreases costs by eliminating unnecessary purchases. The management version of this allows you to integrate with both 100 and 300, and so does the enterprise version as well. Management really offers you a transition from tactical tool tracking to a more strategic tool management solution. It enables your team to better understand tool investment, drive higher return on investment, and gain greater utilization of those assets. Now, Enterprise is the most advanced solution of this. It extends and tunes Sage ToolOps to match your expanding operational needs with a range of powerful features to take tool tracking and management to really the highest level. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and begin our demo portion of this.
All right. Yep. Thank you. And my name is Vic Turner. I'm one of the field sales engineers here at the Sage Construction and Real Estate Group. This is what a user would see when they log into Sage ToolOps powered by ToolWatch. On the home screen here, the first thing you notice, anytime new features are released, which they come out frequently, there's a brief video of that feature, and then there's also a feedback so that you can provide your experience with it and your thoughts on it and any suggestions that you might have. Over on the left-hand side, you can see the different modules within the Sage ToolOps application. And as I select those, you'll notice right above these, you'll see some buttons here, which are the individual options within each module. And then you see a dashboard over here with some KPIs and charts, favorites where users can set up shortcuts to things that they do frequently within the system. And then the message center. These are messages that are generated by the system to warn us of certain things. And we'll go into those as we go through this presentation and look at some examples. But they can also, some of these messages can also trigger a text or an email to the person's responsible for it. So, we don't have to remember looking through reams of paper and searching for things. We're warned when certain conditions occur. I'm going to start out in the tools and equipment module with the tool browser and just talk about how the data is organized in Sage ToolOps. So Sage ToolOps lets me organize my data the way I do business. So what you'll notice here is I have categories. And then within those categories, I've got my different individual categories of tool items here. So I've got these, in this case, grouped by tool items. As I select those, then you can see them displayed on the grid over on the right. And we're going to go through the elements of that grid here in just a minute. What you may also notice is I've also got a breakdown by employee. So I can, if I want to see the tools that a certain employee has, I can now click on that and I can search for that. This is important. This is called the responsible party field. This is important if a employee resigns or is terminated for some reason. You can quickly search for all the tools and assets that that employee has in their possession so that you can recover them before they leave. Within another category that you'll notice here are locations. We've got two different types of locations. We've got the warehouse or the yard, the shop, anywhere where we're housing our tools. And then we've got our job location. So, and we're going to look at how we transfer equipment between those places. So typically, a tool is going to leave a warehouse and go to a job or go from one job to another job. But ultimately, they'll start out in a warehouse somewhere. I'm going to do a more detailed search here. So if I'm looking for something more specific and I want to narrow things down here, perhaps maybe I'm mobilizing a job and I want to find a superintendent's gang box. I'm just going to type part of that in the description here. And so immediately I get a return here on all of the superintendent gang boxes that I have out there in the field. I'm going to also click on this expanded view for just a minute. And what that does is it gives me even more information about this. So for any tool out there, regardless of what it is, I can see what the tool number is, a description of it, who the manufacturer, model, quantity, the status. So does it need repair? If I click on these column headings, it will sort based on the column headings where that tool is currently assigned to, where its location, who the responsible party is for that. So in this particular case, I don't have any for this particular gang box. And the transaction date and when it's scheduled to be returned. So as we transfer these out, it'll ask us for a return date. And so as I'm searching for tools, and we're going to look in the mobile app, but right now we're in the back office, but I'll be able to search on the mobile app to see what's available, see what the status of it is, and ask for a transfer from my mobile device. So I'm going to uncheck this expanded view here for a minute. One thing you'll notice in the far left column here, excuse me, there are these little icons. These are called kits. So a good example of a kit, I'll just open up this particular one here. This is a superintendent's gang box. And we want to make sure that whenever we deliver this to the site, it has all of the components that are needed to make that fully operational when it hits the job site. Nothing left to memory or to paperwork. We've got these organized into kits so that when it arrives on the job site, it has everything that it needs to, like I said, to be fully operational at that site. And from here, then I can do a transfer. I can actually do a lot of things here. I'm going to go back to the tool browser here. Anytime I'm looking up tools, if I right click on it, I can immediately view a list of things that I can do without having to go to other menu options for things like add it to a transfer, which we're going to do here in just a minute, view detail, transaction history. I can reset the responsible party. Maybe that person left and I want to change that. So when I did my search on that responsible party, I could change that back to blank, or warehouse manager, whoever. Change the owner, the status of it, does it need repair, or whatever. That's important. So if I'm in the field on the mobile app, I can see these tools and I can see their status. So I'm not asking for something that is not going to work for me. So I can do a number of things. I can add it to a purchase order. We're going to look at that in a minute when we talk about materials. I'm just going to say add to transfer. When I do that, what you're going to notice is it pulled over automatically all of those items that are going to be, that need to travel with that to make it functional on the job. So I don't have to worry about if this was a, let's say, a air gun assembly with a compressor. I would want to make sure that I had the air hose, maybe an extension cord, the nail gun, any other components. That's another good example of a kit that we might transfer. So right from here, I can automatically tell it where I want this to go. So it's in the Denver warehouse. And now I'm going to give it my location. So, as we noticed earlier, based on the categories where we had our equipment categorized, I can search by employee, I can search by warehouse, I can search by locations, in this case, job locations. So it's in the Denver warehouse, and I'm saying we're going to transfer this to the Anchor Brewing Company job site. Next, it's asking me for a cost code. So these are elements that will be pulled from your back office Sage 300 and Sage 100, so that you don't have to re-enter those if you have the Sage ToolOps. It will synchronize your jobs, your cost codes, your employees, and be able to give you the ability also, if you have tools set up and equipment set up, to transfer those over into Sage ToolOps. But all I'm doing was I did a search for the gang box that I needed. I right clicked, I said, do a transfer. I might tell it now, a return date, whenever the job is expected to be finished, whatever. I could give it a delivered by, assigned on. I'm just going to say, go ahead and process this transfer. And the status of that tool now is the assignment is going to be for my job site. So this is just an example of the transfer ticket here. So I'm going to close this out. From one place, the tool browser just makes it easy for me to quickly find and manage the tools and equipment without getting bounced around in the system. Materials work in a very similar manner. So I've clicked on the materials and consumables module here, and I can also browse for those and do searches in a similar manner that I did for the tools. A couple of differences are that materials typically are going to transfer from a warehouse to a job site and be expensed, whereas tools will be moving back and forth, either between jobs or between the warehouse and jobs, whatever the case may be. But now I can see all of my material items out there, and I can search for them in a very similar way that we did for our tools here. I'm going to go back out for a minute to the dashboard here, and we're going to take a look at one of these messages. There are assets with low levels. ToolOps is warning me here. I don't have to worry about running out of an item. I can set, for any item, I can set a target level, a high level, a low level associated with vendors, whatever the case may be. But I know right now these have gone below the accepted amount, the low level that I've established. And I can select one, or I can select all of these for that matter, and I can just say add to purchase order. And when I do that, it immediately opens up the purchase order and populates it with the item that were on the low level browser. So now I can just finish out, who the vendor is that I'm going to buy this from. I'll just say Acme Tools. We want it shipped to maybe one of the warehouses here. I'll just pick the Atlanta warehouse and update. And it's that easy. So I'll print the purchase order on the screen just so you can get an idea of what that might look like there. So somewhere here I've got an image, and I've got dual monitors. I may come back to that in just a minute, folks. But this is ready to be shipped here, let's see. So we were warned about these items. We were able to quickly right-click, say, issue a purchase order, and that's done. And now I don't have to worry about running out of critical materials when they're needed on my job site. So I think next maybe what I'd like to go over is the mobile app. Maybe I'm a superintendent in the field. You know, we started out with a project manager mobilizing a job, but what if I'm a superintendent in the field and I need something like a compressor or whatever? I'm going to attach my iPhone here, and this is device agnostic, so I can, this is a little tool that I use to display my phone on the computer screen here. So hopefully this is all going to work for us here. I'm going through multiple layers of technology, but here we can see right on our screen there, this is the home screen, excuse me. This is the home screen of the mobile app, and in that home screen we actually have two modes. We have warehouse mode and field mode, so and I'll talk about the warehouse mode in just a minute. Right now I'm in field mode. So I'm on the job site and I need a compressor. Probably the easiest way I'd do it would be, let's say, search, and I'll search by category. And I can search based on a number of different ways. And I'm going to narrow this search down. I could just start typing compressor, but I'm going to narrow it down to my tool list here, and I'm going to say compressor. And just start typing. And as I do, you can see that the list populates, and I can choose that item, and now it brings up different choices within that. So if I want to view one, I'll just open it up here, and first thing I might want to do is view the details, you know, make sure that it's available, operational and so forth. So now I'm just browsing, just like I was able to do on my desktop with the tool browser. I'm browsing through this tool here. I search for it. I'm saying, whoops, you know, it needs repair. So based on that, I probably want to select a different compressor. So let's see what we have here. We'll view the details of this one, and you know, hey, that one looks okay. So we're going to come back, and I'm just going to say add that to my move ticket here. Now I could continue to add tools and materials and so forth to this. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll just come back to the home screen and select move. It knew where that tool was originally located, so it's already populated the from, and now I just want to tell it where I want to send that to. Once again, I've got some choices. I'm going to pick project because that's, you know, where I'm at. Here's the Anchor Brewing Company, and so it's populated that, and now I can select the cost code. So we'll just say cast in place concrete, and I'll say next. Now I could add some more items. I can also scan barcodes here and pull those in by barcode. I'm just going to say add this to the or submit the ticket here. And by the way, I can scan in meter readings here as well for items here. So and I don't have a barcode in front of me right now, but whether it's inventory or tools in the field, I can scan in barcodes. I can do searches in a number of ways. But as you can see, I needed a tool. I very easily did a search. I found what I needed. I could look at the details to make sure it was operational. I could see who was responsible. Maybe I just want to call them. Maybe that's a job site near mine or something. I just want to do a quick transfer. I don't want to have to send a transfer request back to the warehouse, have a pick ticket filled out. I can just very quickly have it transferred from one job to the other. So that's how easy it is to actually locate tools. And once again, I could I could add meter readings for tool as well. So just coming back, maybe I need maybe I'm recording a truck mileage or something. on my vehicle here. And I could search it way down. I'm just going to come in here and say, now you'll notice I have the option to update the meter, and I can come in and put in a new meter reading here as well. So as you're going to see in a minute, this feeds into automated service work orders so that when certain milestones are met for equipment based on meter readings, hours, turns. A turn is in Sage ToolOps is when is what we call a turn when a tool is delivered to a site and comes back. So maybe you have some equipment that every time it goes out to job and comes back, it needs to be repaired. So I can very easily record my meter readings here. We make it very easy for people to do. There's no paperwork that'll get lost. I don't have to worry about rehandling this data and inputting it. And as you're going to see when we look at the service module next, I'm going to know that my tools are being properly serviced, so when they hit the job site, they're fully operational. So it doesn't matter if it's a backhoe, a plasma cutter, an electrical conduit bender, no matter what, it's going to get taken care of. So I'm good. And before I leave this, I do want to come back and just briefly, I'll show you what the warehouse mode looks like. So users in the warehouse now can do things such as count inventory, quick inventory counts. Maybe they're looking at something, the quantity doesn't match, you do a quick update. Once again, there's no paperwork that I have to deal with. Transfer requests from the field are available here. I can pull them up, and as I'm walking through the warehouse with my iPhone or iPad or whatever the case may be, I can then fill out pick tickets so that those are transferred out to the job. I'm going to jump out of the mobile app here and come back to our next. I want to talk about service and calibration here. In order to really understand that properly, we need to look at the tool record here. And right off the bat, I can see there's tools that need to be serviced. So that might be something I might look at very quickly here. We're going to come back to this screen in a minute. But now it's based on certain triggers. It's telling me, hey, these tools need to be serviced, and the system's automatically going to generate and send a service work order request to the service department based on these triggers. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to come back to the tool browser here. To really understand it, we need to look at how the tool is set up. So we're going to come back to the tool browser here. And I'm going to clear this. I'm going to search for a vehicle, in this case, a superintendent truck here. Now I'm just going to narrow it down to vehicle. And so now it's displayed every tool that's fallen under that category of vehicle. And I can sort in different ways if I'm looking for a certain model or whatever. You look down at the bottom here, you can see I have 3 Chevy Silverados. I'm going to go ahead and open up this record right here. This is the tool record. So tools, when they're set up in the system, we give you the ability to tag it with certain things, some of which we've already looked at. Who's responsible for it? Where's that tool currently located? We talked about the meter reading. We also want to record things, in this case, serial number, license tag. Here's the odometer reading that, by the way, is getting updated from those meter readings in the field. But it might be hours if it was a backhoe, or, like I said, turns. There's different metrics that might apply to different pieces of equipment. But in the tool record here, I see some specifics about this particular truck. Here's its tool ID. But its corresponding barcode. I can see who the responsible party is, what department it belongs to. I can also tell it what kind of repair parts are typically needed when this truck needs to be serviced, what components, any accessories that may come with this particular model, purchase and cost. I also have the ability to track leased equipment and maintain them in the same manner. So it doesn't matter if I own them outright or if I'm leasing them, whatever. I'm going to come back here in just a second, focus on the service tab. I just want to click for a second up here on the upper right. You see model information. So this is one truck, but I know that I've got 3 of these Chevy Silverados. So if I click on model information, Now it's going to pull up the model record. And what a model record does several things. It enforces consistency for one thing. So I can see that I have 3 trucks of this model. I would expect that they each, because they are the same year, make, and model, would have the same requirements from a servicing standpoint, the same accessories, whatever the case may be. So when I'm assigning a tool in Sage ToolOps, when I'm setting it up, I want to set up a model record so that all of my tools of that same model are linked together. Now I can establish service plans for those. These service plans, now any tool that gets added or linked to this model record is going to inherit the service plan. Now, maybe that particular truck, I bought it used or whatever, I may have to tweak that service plan for that individual vehicle, but when I add it, it's going to take all of the things that I normally expect and want a tool to have. It's going to pull that from the tool model record. So when I come back over here to the tool record, let's take a look at the service tab. This was, once again, inherited from the model record. Now I could come in and change this. Here I can see any open work orders, any service history on that. I want to come down to the service plan, and I can have multiple service events within a service plan. We'll take a look at one of these. So I'll open this up. And in that record, I see several tabs: work order details, the task. As you can see, it automatically, these are the items that are going to populate a service work order when a certain milestone for service has been met. The system just does that automatically. I don't have to worry about a tool going unserviced. If it's set up properly, the system is automatically going to remind me. And it's also going to make sure that it includes all of the parts, instructions, whatever the case may be, even links to the manufacturer's website for the owner's manual, whatever the case may be. When this event triggers a service work order, the service department is going to automatically be notified, and they're going to have everything they need right there at their fingertips to service this particular tool. So close out the attachments here. So coming back over here to the work order detail tab here, where we opened up the service event, we had 2 of them. This is what happens at 3,000 miles. This is what I want to happen at 21,000 miles. I'm going to click on this recurrence here. This is where I define what the metric is for the trigger that's going to trigger a work order when a certain metric is met. I can do it by date. I can do it by meter. I can do it by turns. A minute ago I mentioned a turn is any time a piece of equipment leaves one location and goes to another and comes back. That's probably the best way to describe it. I can do whichever comes first. Once again, if I do it by date, I can trigger it by dates and calendars and so forth. And now what's going to happen, this is on autopilot. And maybe this particular tool, as I mentioned, it inherited all of this from the model record. Once I establish an individual tool record, I could change anything about this that I wanted to. I could add another service plan event or for whatever reason or whatever. So I'm going to close out of this here for a second. And when I come back over here to the dashboard here, you will notice there are tools that need to be serviced. Okay, now this has automatically opened up the service work order browser, where these service work order requests land when they're automatically triggered based on the service event in the tool record. I'll just open one of them up. And this is for that same vehicle that we just looked at. What you can see now is that it has brought over all of the components from that. So nobody had to look this up and say, hey, this needed to be serviced. They didn't have to look up, okay, do we have all the parts? Because our low-level browser for our inventory, because we're going to be inventorying these parts, is going to warn us when that gets low. So we know we've got the inventory in stock. We know that all of the proper service items are going to be maintained on this piece of equipment. And now in the service department, I can start recording my charges for this service and complete out this service work order. And I'll just print one here just to give you an idea of what that might look like in a printed output here. So this is actually the service work order that got triggered here. Look at my clock here. I want to make sure I've got one other item that I'd like to talk about here before I flip it back over to go to wrap it up and see if we can answer whatever questions. I want to talk about the job cost and billing module. I mentioned that there's some integration right now with the Sage 300. And what happens here, well, maybe the best way for me to is just to go through and explain the service and calibration module here. Excuse me, the job cost and billing module. And that's where the integration actually occurs here. And it starts with a rate sheet. And I can have multiple rate sheets. I can have a master rate sheet that says this is what we charge for these components. And it can be very sophisticated, you know, daily, hourly, weekly. You can set up rules that say, well, it's normally an hourly charge, but if it's on the job for 16 hours, give it the benefit of the daily rate, or if it's on the job for 3 days, give it the benefit of the weekly rate, whatever the case may be. And this can be customized for each individual job. As I'm transferring the equipment through the transfers, which we looked at earlier, the system now looks at this rate sheet for that particular job that it's transferred to and starts building out the billing, the invoicing for that particular tool, for that job. So now what I'm able to do is I'm able to come through now and see, okay, for a particular job, and I can see this before it actually gets charged to the job. So in the case of Sage 300, these transactions would be exported out and imported in Sage 300 to the job cost import, so that now I'm recording the equipment usage against the jobs. Sage 100, we're working on that. It's soon to be available as far as the update to job cost, but that's not completed yet, but the Sage 300 is. I can now, as a project manager, I can see the individual charges, and I have an opportunity now. I can put them on hold. I can go back over and I can modify that charge if I need to be. You know, maybe it's for whatever reason we don't want to charge it that much, or whatever the case may be. The point I'm trying to make is that even though we have these rate sheets that automatically calculate the billings, I have the opportunity to come in and modify those before they're finalized and updated against the job in the system there. The other thing I wanted to point out, we've got the billing browser. So in the billing browser there, we're in the billing browser, excuse me. I mentioned this is the equipment usage log. So this is where another place where I could come and see for my job what charges have been placed against that and give myself the opportunity to put it on, to modify it or delete it or to add to it or whatever. And I have a whole variety of different reports here. And I'm just going to open up one here as an example. This is the ROI report. Now as these tools are being charged out against the jobs, that's being quantified in a revenue, for lack of a better word, even though we're charging it their own job. And as the service department services that and we have expenses against that, we have a cost. So now I'm essentially getting a P&L by tool. I can see maybe there's tools that we're not using. That's something that I can tell. Maybe we've been renting tools when we don't need to rent tools. Maybe this tool is old because it's requiring excessive maintenance and I need to retire it and buy a new asset. This is just one example of how we're leveraging the power of that system. We've got one point of entry for our transactions that occur at the source. So either in the field on the mobile device or from the back office as I'm mobilizing a job, whatever the case may be, I've eliminated all of that paperwork and the mistakes and errors that come along with rehandling that data over and over and over again. I'm also not worried about missing a tool that needs to be serviced so that when it gets sent out to the job site, not operational. All those things go away. I know when a quick piece of equipment lands on the job and it needs other components to be fully operational, I can be assured that it's going to be delivered with all of those components. So there's a lot to talk about here, and we are running short on time, but we only have a limited time. So I'm going to switch this back.
So that was an overview. Hopefully you got a good amount of information from the Sage team. If you have any questions, if you want to schedule a more tailored demo to see how this would work for your actual team and how you guys have your workflow set up, let me know. I'm happy to schedule some time where we could talk a little bit more about that and how this could work for your company. Again, I'm Leilani Evans. We'll see you next week for our next webinar. Please email me or give me a call with any questions or anything else that I can help you with. Thanks so much. Have a great week.